This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so now I guess we can get started. Good morning. I'm glad you're all here, and this is so much easier since it would be like impossible for a lot of us to get out to have our class at the store today. This is our third session of the embellish, no, not embellish. That's sorry. I was just watching Paula's class. This is our third chapter of the EPIC workbook, and this one is called Advanced Icon Knowledge. And it's when I hear icon, I immediately think of the off machine. So it's kind of confusing to have that word be used for so many different things. But what it means for us today is that it's the symbols that are on the screen on the machine. That's what kind of icons we are talking about today. So we're going to start in the embroidery. This is all going to be in the embroidery mode. So if you are at your machine and want to play along with me by touching and moving and so forth, that's what we're going to do today. And let me get myself around so I can touch the screen. Can all of you see the screen okay? All right, I will assume, unless I hear differently, that you can. So first, we're going to be in the embroidery mode like my screen shows here, and we're going to talk about the touch and hold feature. And any icon that is a touch and hold icon will have a little, and let me bring up a design just so I can activate more of them. Down, some of these down here at the toolbar, if you notice down at the bottom right-hand corner, you will see a little tiny arrow. That identifies those particular icons as touch and hold icons, and you can see that all four of them here to the right of the control wheel have those little arrows on them as a touch and hold icon, and then the grid one here plus the trash can and the duplicate also have those little arrows on them. So if I've got a design loaded up and if I wanted to duplicate it, I could touch and hold my duplicate icon, and instead of just duplicating it, it gives me the number pad where I could put in, instead of, if I just touch the duplicate icon itself and then let go, it would just make me a second copy. However, if I hold it, I get the number pad, so I could have 3 more copies of it on my screen and then be able to individually select them and move them separately. And that's a mess, I know, because I got a huge design in there. But that makes it so much easier than having to repeatedly touch that duplicate icon so that you get multiple copies of it. Now, since I have a whole bunch of them on the screen, if I touch the trash can icon, the delete one, if I just touch it, it's only going to delete the one that is selected. However, if I touch and hold it, then I get a little pop-up and says, do you want to delete everything? Which also is extremely handy, because then you can totally clear your machine or screen. All right. Any questions on that one? Okay, now I'm turning the page to page 2. and they ask us to bring up a stitch from the sewing menu, menu F. Come on, don't be difficult. Okay, menu F, stitch number 28, which is the two little hearts. And it brings up one repeat of the heart. And again, if I touch and hold on item number 3, it says touch and hold the stitch. It doesn't really mean that. It means touch and hold the duplicate icon. So you might want to mark that on your page. So I'm going to touch and hold. Now I get my number pad. And if I touch 3 and my check mark, then I actually have 4 copies on there. And what it did, yes?
Could you go back? I just was not able to follow that. It's
Okay.
so so I have the hearts up on the screen.
Okay.
But
so now I have one heart on the screen.
Yeah.
And item number 3 on page 2 says touch and hold the stitch, but you want, instead of cross out stitch and write duplicate icon.
Oh,
okay.
The duplicate. Okay.
Because touching and holding the stitch does nothing for you. Well, that's not true. If you touch and hold the stitch, you're going to get this fly out menu, and you can slide up to the duplicate, but that only gives you 1 copy. Okay. But if you touch and hold the duplicate icon, then you get your number pad, so you can get more than 1 extra copy. Does that make sense, Therese?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're most welcome. So now I have the 3 copies, and it's interesting to me that those 3 are all selected. And you see the big border around all 3 of them, but inside that you see 3 little boxes, one around each little heart. So if I touch my screen outside of that box, then I can go in and select each one of those hearts separately. Now, if I want to do what they're telling me to do here, it says to select 2 of them, so I can select and flip them side by side or side to side by using the icon down, or down here in the very left, the mirror side to side icon. So then I have 2 going one way and 2 going another, and it asks us to put them all in a line. And if putting them in a line is, come on, quit being that way. To put them in a line, you think you have them lined up, but when you want to check it for sure, if you use the little magnifying glass icon down here at the bottom, you get 2 options. The first one is zoom to the design. So it magnifies the design until it fills the screen. And then you can see a little better about moving them, and you can either drag them or you can use the arrows in the control wheel to move them and line them up perfectly. Or you can use the zoom slider down here at the bottom to zoom in and out to see whether or not they're lined up perfectly. Does that make sense? It also, to my mind, it makes it easier if I have the grid on, it makes them easier to line things up. And I can turn the grid on and off using the little crosshatch icon down here to the upper left of the control wheel.
Hey, Judy,
Uh-huh.
this is Carolyn. I'm way behind. I can't figure out how to get to category A. When my screen, when I push the load a design, the flower at the bottom, maybe that's where I don't push it at the bottom. I think I know what I did wrong. I'll try something else.
You okay?
Maybe. Go, keep going. Keep going. Keep going with everybody. I'll try to catch up.
Okay, well, that you were looking for what category?
Well, I pushed the flower at the very bottom, but I needed to push the flower on the menu. So I'm
Oh,
good.
the bottom is your applique, right?
Yeah. So that's where I got messed up. So I'm good. I'm going to catch up.
All right. Well, all right. While she's catching up, down at the bottom of, or the lower half of page 2, it says there's other places that you can use touch and hold, and here are some of the uses. And one of them I accidentally got into a little bit ago when I selected a stitch and I touched and held it. You get a flyout menu that, as long as you are still holding, you can slide to delete, you can slide to mirror side to side, you could slide to mirror end to end, you can touch to duplicate, or you can touch to edit. And if I touch edit, then it takes me into the program section of, or program function on the machine. For right now, we're just want you to know that that is one of the touch and hold features, which is pretty handy. And it was really handy before they changed and put a lot of these icons down at the bottom of the screen for us.
Judy,
Yes.
how do you get to that screen?
How do I get to what screen, ma'am?
What you have there with menu F? Say, go to menu F, but how do you get it so it's like you're doing embroidery?
Well, I'm in embroidery edit, in
Oh,
embroidery mode.
all right.
Touch my stitches for sewing. The little zigzag icon that was up at the top until I touched it and it brought up the menu.
Okay, I have no idea. I've never done this, so I have no idea how you got there.
Did it make sense?
No?
No?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so I start off, I'm in embroidery mode, okay? Let me clear everything on the screen, okay? So see you have your icons up here at the top.
Yeah, but I can't see them in your picture. There you go.
Can you see them now?
Okay.
And there's like an open book, and then there's the little zigzag one right here, the second one from the left.
Oh, okay.
And if you touch that, it takes you into the sewing stitches.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, and then you can slide along, move along the bottom till you get to the F menu.
Okay, I got it.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Good. Thanks for asking.
Sure how you got there.
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, now the second item, or the second use for the touch and hold, is if you're watching a video and you've got a, let's see, I need something that I know has a video on it, and I'm going to go to, say, dimensional stitches, because that's what we did recently, and it has a video. Come on. Okay, so now I've got a screen up that has a video on it, and I engage my video and it starts playing. But if I want to start over from the beginning, I touch and hold the rewind, and it does have a little arrow down in the right-hand corner to signify that it's a touch and hold icon. So if I just touch and hold it, it pops me all the way back to the beginning of the video, which, you know, is really handy if you're got interrupted while you were watching the video or something didn't make sense. You could just pop right back to the beginning and start it over. All right. Now I need to go back to embroidery. So there we go. Now, if you touch and hold on a folder to open the folder and then save a design to the folder. So if I have my folders open here and I want to save something in I have something on my screen that I want to save to a particular folder, then if I touch, say, my flowers folder, and then I touch my little heart down here on the very bottom at the very left, which is my save icon, then it will save it to my flowers folder. And this is really tiny, so I'm not sure that you can see it. But when I touched on it, it put the name of the folder, flowers, up here in this gray bar. And then if I said I could type in the name of that flower that I wanted and touch the check mark, then it says successfully saved. And now the one that I just saved is showing on this menu in my flowers folder. Any questions on that? Did that make sense? Okay. So let's get back to normal. All right. If you want to load a design, so we touch the yellow folder and then the icons up here. It's the second one from the right end.
Judy?
Yes.
Oh, good. I guess my audio wasn't working. It didn't do that for me.
What didn't do what, Mary?
To save to that folder. It just saved to the main one. So you touch the folder up there.
Okay, so now, all right, I brought up my list of folders by touching that yellow folder menu or
Right.
icon,
Right.
right? And then I touch and hold the folder I want it to go into.
Yeah.
I have to have something on the screen, so let me just put something on the screen here. Okay, so I've got something on the screen. I've got my flowers folder open because its name is in this gray bar up here.
Right.
Okay, and then I touch the heart down here at the bottom. Okay. And
Right.
again, the name of the flowers folder is in this gray bar right up here on my save screen.
Mine isn't.
Yours isn't.
It's on the first gray bar, but not the second. It just is blank up there.
What is selected up here? Is your cloud and heart green or is your USB green?
It's my cloud and heart.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so something's screwy.
Something's not behaving.
Right. Okay. All right. Go on. I'll just try to, maybe I'll try with it. I mean, I did this, use the stitches rather than an embroidery design, but that shouldn't matter because it's all saved as an embroidery design, correct?
Correct.
All right. I'll play with it. Thanks.
Okay, let me know.
Okay, Judy, can I ask a question?
Of
If-
course.
If you need to make a new file, a new folder, will that automatically come up and you type it in if you don't have a folder you want to add it to?
All right, so let me go back to my save screen. Down here, where this gray bar down here, where you're going to put the name
Uh-huh.
of your design, over here, there's a little folder symbol with a plus.
Okay.
If you touch that, then it says enter your folder name. You would type the folder name in there, and let me just type, say, new, and hit the check mark. So now I'm showing under the folder that was open, okay, that I've created the new one. If I didn't want that new folder there, let me go back to my save. And because I'm not in my root folder, the beginning of my or the general one, because I've got this flowers name here, if I touch this crooked up arrow next to this gray bar on the top, that will take me up one level and I will see the next higher level of my folders, of which flowers is one. And if that's where I want it, rather than underneath the flowers, I would go ahead and create my folder there. And now it shows up here and I can select it by touching and holding. And now I have the word new in this gray bar here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right. Let's see. Okay, now, if let's see, we are on the 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one down says touch and hold on a touch function to lock it. And they're talking about these functions down here, the move, the rotate, the scale, the pan. If I touch and hold my rotate function, then you see this little teeny tiny padlock underneath that icon, and the icon is highlighted. That means that, let me get rid of that. Normally when something is selected on the screen, you see handles all around it. But now that I have the rotate function locked, the only thing that is available to me on the screen is my rotate function. I can't move it. I can't scale it. The only thing I can do is rotate it because that rotate function is locked. It would be the same with the move function. If I lock it, then I can move it, but I can't rotate it. I can't scale it. The only thing I can do is move it. All right. Any questions on that one? All right. Now it says we can, I'm going to get rid of this. Touch and hold on a folder to open it. So let me get my list of folders up again. If I want to open, say, the gift bag folder, if I touch and hold it, then it brings me up the name of all the files and or folders that would be within that folder. And if I touch the over here across from the gift bag name, the icon, the checkerboard icon over here, if I touch that, then I get pictures instead of names. And by the way, that's the designs for the tech class in April, which Therese has seen. So by touching and holding on that folder,
Yeah.
it opened the folder and let me see whatever was in it.
Cool.
Okay, now, the next one to me is similar to the one right before it because it's talking about the, and just as an aside, if I touch and hold on a design, it's going to bring it in to the hoop for me. Okay, now if I touch and hold the resize button, which is this one down here with a multiple size of squares, if I lock it, then again, I don't have my rotate icon up here. I can't move it, but I can scale it. Okay, now it's talking about the resize button, but that's not the resize. The resize is actually down here, but I think they really mean the scale button. They don't mean the resize button. So I'm going to write on mine here, scale. Because the resize is not a function that has a touch and hold to it. And then the last one, it's talking about when you're in embroidery and you want to move around in a design. Okay, thank you. You can use your plus or minus stitch buttons to position, say your thread breaks and you need to go back a ways. You can use your minus button to back up a few stitches. Or if for some reason you want to skip a certain section, and you can move your plus button or hold your plus button to move you forward in your design. Okay. And I'm not sure you could see that. Okay, when I'm moving, holding the minus button, I'm moving backward in the design. And when I'm holding the plus button, I'm moving forward. Also, if you have your color bars up, if you touch a color bar, that can move you to the next color in your design, or by touching the previous one, move you back in the design. Okay, any questions with that? I don't hear anything, so I assume we're good. Okay. Now we're going on to page 3, which is your arrange function. So I'd like, if you're following along on your machine, I would like you to pick a larger hoop, like your even the 360 by 260, so you have a lot of room to maneuver. And I'm going to get rid of my design. I'm going to bring up the arrange menu, which is this little stacked icon right here below the screen on the left and above all the other icons. If you bring that up, it brings up a little fly out, and it doesn't. I want something little. Okay. Let's do, no, that doesn't show up very well. Go away. Don't want that. Okay, we'll do something off the library. Maybe, maybe not. Come on. Sorry. All right, we'll do that. All right. The arrange menu on your sheet on page 3, it tells you what each one of those icons mean. And if you don't have your paper with you and you forget, don't forget your super friend up here at the very top, your question mark. If you touch your question mark and you touch one of those icons, it's going to tell you what it is. And I use that a lot because sometimes it's hard for me to remember what's the difference between, or which one is multi-select and which one is select all. So remember that your question mark will help you out if you can't remember what all these little icons are for. So if I have, say I have duplicated my design and I have, come on, 3 of that particular design on the screen, you can see that I have 3 of them in this little window of the arrange function over here. I have one of them selected and it is outlined in blue or green or whatever you want to call that color, but it's highlighted because it's selected. If I unselect it, then that outline goes away. If I want to select all of them at once, if I touch my multi-select button, I can select them individually, and it looks kind of like when I did the hearts and duplicated them. There's a box around all of them, but each one of them inside that box has its own little outlines showing me that they are still individual designs. An easier way to do that, if I had touched the select all, it would give me the same result of having a border around all of them, but still showing the individual designs within there. And then all of them will be outlined in this window over here for the arrange menu. Notice that when I use the multi-select icon, it stays on. If I use the select all icon, it is on just temporarily and then it turns off because it's done what it wants to do or what you want it to do. The multi-select icon you can select, say, just 2 of them, whereas the select all is just a one-shot deal. It's going to select all of them. Does that make sense? And you need to turn your multi-select icon off when you're not using it because sometimes it can get you in trouble if you're not careful. All right. So,
Judy, how can you tell if it's off?
how can I tell if what's on?
The multi-select tool is off.
When it's on, it's got the blue color. Okay, and then I can use it.
Right?
When I turn it off, what I have selected stays selected. All right.
Right.
If I deselect them and I leave it on, even if I have nothing selected and I close that, I can still use it.
Oh, yeah.
But you may not want to. So you have to be careful to, and if that happens and you don't have your arrange menu showing, you need to turn your arrange menu on and check and see if that first icon is highlighted. So then when you go out of it, you're not able to multi-select.
Got it.
Okay? All right, thank you. All right, now the next icon down is not highlighted at the moment. And that is because that's the group or ungroup icon. And the only thing I have selected is one item, so I can't group just one item. So I need to either select all and say group. And when I do that, look that I no longer have the individual boxes around the designs. All I have is the one large box around the designs. Also note that my handles, instead of being purple, and it may depend on the color scheme that you're using on your machine, they are a different color than when they are not grouped. Can you see that happen on your machine? Okay. But I don't have to group all of them. So I can select them by touching them on the screen or unselect them by touching outside of the screen. But I can also select by touching them in this list that is showing in the arrange menu. So if I want to select two of them and I touch the multi-select tool and touch them over here, it's the same as if I touched them on the main part of the screen. So there's two ways to select when you're in the arrange menu. All right. Okay, so now if I have an additional design up here. Let's see, let's do that one. All right, so I have this, and as I bring stuff into my main area of my screen, it's going to put them in the arrange menu in the sequence in which I brought them into the screen. But if I don't want them to stitch out in that sequence, if for some reason I decide I want this flower to stitch out first, I can select that and use the fourth icon down, which is called Stitch Design Earlier, and I can move it up in the sequence. Oops, thank you. I can move it up in the stitching sequence. This is the sequence in which those designs are going to stitch out. But if I wanted it to stitch last, or even in the middle, I can use the one or the other of those two icons to move it around in the stitching sequence. Does that make sense? It's an easy way to get things to stitch out in the order you want them if you haven't loaded them, if you've loaded multiple designs onto your screen, but you didn't necessarily load them in the sequence that you want them to stitch out, is to use those two icons down at the bottom of your icons on your arrange menu to move them around. Questions on that? All right. Let's see.
Judy,
I'm
this is
sorry.
Betty.
Hi, Betty.
This is Betty. I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
spent an hour and a half trying to get on. So I've been listening to the telephone. I just want you, I will have to leave at 12 o'clock because I have a doctor's appointment. But I think there's words inactive or active in all this garbage. They're screwing everybody up.
Okay, well, if you got the handout, it's pretty clear for,
I do.
but you can always holler at me if you got questions, okay? Thank you for being here. All right, I've already covered page 4. Page 5, we've played with moving them around, doing multiples. We did group and ungroup. We changed, or we did stitch out earlier or stitch out later. And when you're finished with moving things around and grouping or ungrouping, however you want things to be, then you can close the menu by, again, touching the arrange icon, and it goes from highlighted to white, so you know it's not active. All right. Any questions on the arrange menu? One thing I didn't mention is if I have, and let me do this so I have too many of them on there. Okay, if you have more designs on your screen, then you can see in your arrange menu, if you touch on the very edge over here, you can actually slide your designs up and down. But the little slider bar doesn't show up until you actually touch the screen. Okay. So if you're looking for something that is way down the list, you may need, or way up on the top of the list, you may need to move that, your list of designs up and down using that little slider bar. All right. I'm on page 7, and I'm going to clear this. And it wants to talk, it's talking about scale. And I've always called this circle thing down here the control wheel. In this instruction, they're calling it different names based on what function you have selected in the icons down here. So if you want to follow along with the design that they're showing in the instructions, that's in the K menu for the kitchen. I don't quite know how this one got into the kitchen menu, but that's it. It's number 28 in the kitchen menu. Yes, Diane?
It says kitchen and home. I think that's why it's in there.
Okay. I always say, I remember K for kitchen.
That makes good sense.
Okay. And make sure you have it in a fairly large hoop so you've got some room to play with it. So we're going to talk about the scale icon. And right now, the design, if you look down here at on the white bar above all the icons, you see this tells you the number of stitches. This one over here, the little flower, it says you have 17,343 stitches. The little icon over to the left of that says how many designs you have, and you have design 1 of 1. If you had more designs, then that would look different. Down below that, if I have my move icon activated, it's going to tell me the position of the design on the screen. If I have my rotate activated, it tells me whether or not it has been rotated. Because it hasn't been rotated, it's at 0 degrees. When I go to my scale icon, and this is kind of an easy way if you want to know the size of a design, but you didn't notice it when you loaded the design into the screen. If you touch your scale icon, it will tell you how big your design is. This one is 140 millimeters wide and 144.6 millimeters high. So the scale icon is handy to tell you the size of a design in addition to its normal function. Okay, once we have our scale icon selected, we can make our design either 20% bigger, and you notice when I drug that, all of a sudden it stopped. It stopped because it was at 20% bigger. But you'll notice your stitch count did not change. It's still 17,343 stitches, which it was when it was initially loaded into the screen. If I decide that because it has stretched those stitches farther apart into order to make the design bigger, I don't like the spaces that are in there. Look at the heads on the pins. I can see some little blank areas in there. So if I decide I don't like it and I want it to go back to the original size, if I touch this 100% box between the size dimensions of that design, it will take it back to the original size. The same is true if I made it smaller. It will only make it 20% smaller. So now I still have my 17,343 stitches, but now instead of being 144.6 centimeter or millimeters high, it's 115.7 millimeters high. And that's going to mash my stitches closer together and make it denser. So if I really wanted to know what it how it affected it, I would have to stitch it out because you can't really tell on the screen. You can magnify it with the slider bar, but that doesn't always tell you or show you exactly what's going to happen to the design. So if I want to go back to the original size, then I again can touch my 100% box and it goes back to my 144.6 centimeters or millimeters high.
So we can't adjust the number of stitches, though. We can only adjust the size, right?
With the scale icon.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
With the scale icon. Okay. They're not going to throw you under the bus yet.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, in the control wheel, or what they call the scale positioning control, you have a padlock in the center. And you have just an up and down arrow. The sideways arrows are not active. So when the scale function is locked, you can use the arrows to make it bigger or smaller. All right. But again, you're going to be limited to the 20%. And your 100% box is active, which you can use to negate your size change. However, if you touch that padlock and unlock it, then you have all 4 arrows active, and I can squeeze it sideways without changing the up and down measurement, or I can stretch it sideways. Likewise, I can stretch it up and down larger, or I can stretch, shrink it up and down with that padlock unlocked. But when it's locked, I can only change it proportionally. Okay? Questions on that one?
So
All
Judy,
right.
when you do it that way, it leaves the stitch count the same. It just makes it, to make it less dense or denser.
Yes.
It's not going to change the stitch count. Perfect.
No, ma'am. Scale is not going to change the stitch count no matter what you do to the design. But it's going to limit you to 20% up or down, sideways, or whatever. Okay? Now, in answer to Lee's question, if we go to the bottom of page 9 with the resize, scale will not change number of stitches. Resize will. All right. So the resize icon is down here at the very bottom of your screen. It's the 3 little flowers in 3 different sizes. It's the 4th one from the left. If I touch that, then it brings me into, and it tells me on the screen that I am now in resize up here at the top. All right. And my controls down here look a little different. Again, it doesn't tell me a number of stitches. It tells me the size, and you can see grayed out in between the size measurements that there is a box for the 100%. And in place of the scale icon, we have a resize icon that's highlighted. So, and again, right now I have just the up and down arrows in my control wheel activated. And in resize, you can only resize proportionally. In scale, you could stretch it just sideways or up and down, or shrink it sideways or up and down. But in resize, you can only do it proportionally. Okay? So if you need to change it to squish it sideways or up and down, you are limited to 20% in the scale function. If you want to stretch it more than 20% or shrink it more than 20% proportionally, then you're going to use the resize function. Okay? Any questions on that? Lee, you okay with that?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Now, there is a limit on resize.
Judy, just one quick question before you go into the next thing. So does this also work when we're in our software?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's the white handles versus the blue handles.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. You've seen those, right? Okay. All right. So there is a limit as to how big and how small you can make it in resize. You can go up to 5 times smaller or 8 times larger. Now, so this design, again, is 144.6 millimeters high. If I want to know how big I can make it, if I touch and hold on that number field, come on, don't be mean to me. Why are you just being naughty? don't know. Come on. You can drag it. Okay, and you see the size as you're dragging. You will see the size up at the top of the screen, right up here. If I let go of this handle, that size goes away. All right. And I thought I would get a number pad when I touched the number, but maybe not. It's not appearing to respond to that. So you will need to depend on your numbers that you have, that you're seeing up at the top of the screen to tell you what size you've changed your design to. Now, it doesn't show you a stitch count until you go back into embroidery, and now it tells me that my stitch count is 30,363. So it has changed my stitch count.
How did you go back into embroidery?
The check mark at the bottom.
So
Did you find
Judy,
it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's this down here at the very bottom. You can either cancel with the X, or you can go back to embroidery with that check mark.
so what if you want to resize again after you look at it? How do you get back into the resize? Oh, maybe you have to just click on it. I figured it out.
Okay, but
Edit
it's
it.
going, if you decide that you don't like the size that it is, or that something looks like you don't want it to look, it is suggested that you do not resize a design which has already been resized. The suggestion is that you go back to the original design and resize that. Does that make sense, Diane?
Yeah, does that mean you have to delete it and reload it? Or just take it back to 100%?
I would delete it and reload it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I mean, just, it's what I call cheap insurance.
Yep.
Okay. And this little blue button over here on the left-hand side of the control wheel is what they call retain fill type. Sometimes you will have a fancy fill, and I couldn't, without stitching out a bunch of designs, I couldn't see that I really made a difference by turning that on or off. But if you have something that has a very specific fill type, say you've done a basket weave kind of a fill type in a design, and you wanted to make sure that when you enlarged or reduced the size of that design, that basket fill design stayed in there, then you want to make sure that that little blue circle to the left of your control wheel is on, which is blue. Sometimes I've been told that it gets too complicated for it to keep the fill design if you're enlarging a lot or reducing a lot, that you're better off letting it just put a plain fill type in there, and you would do that by turning off that retain fill type button. All right. Again, I haven't experienced that personally, so I think that would be an experience thing. All right. So that is the end of our instructions. does anybody have anything they want to go back to or a question about what we've covered as far as touch and hold, scaling, resizing, the arrange menu? Okay.
I'm curious if anybody else had that problem with touching and holding the file folder like I am. It doesn't, because you touch and hold the file folder before you select the part, correct?
Okay, I'm going to touch my file folder, or I'm going to go back. Okay, so I'm in my main files in File Manager, right?
Right,
And the one that's green is the cloud and the heart. And if I touch the folder that says March, then it brings it up. It says March in the gray bar up here.
right.
Okay, and then I want to try this. If I say save, and now you say yours is blank up here in this gray bar when you say save.
Right, but yours doesn't say more, it just says flowers. It didn't change either.
Well, it did because I did. Oh, okay, you're right. It didn't. Okay, so I say March. Huh, you little stink butt. Okay, so I say March. I say save. It says flowers. Okay, so now it's, let me go back.
Yeah, see, that's what it's doing on mine.
Okay, so now I have my design and it doesn't matter whether it's selected, right?
Right,
And I don't even have my folder menu up, okay?
correct.
I've just got my design up. I touch save. It still says flowers because that's the last one I saved to. If I touch my up menu, it's blank up here. And now I say I select my March folder. Okay, I've got to select my folder within my save menu.
Yeah, okay, then I'm with you there. That worked for me, but it didn't from the first time with the folders. Okay,
And that may be a confusion, I'm sorry, on my part, because I had saved it to the same folder previously, so that's what came up. If I save something here now, and then I go back, and I want to save something else, we'll pretend that's something else, it's still going to come up with that March folder.
yeah, okay,
It's going to come up with the last one just to make it easy for you if you're saving multiple designs to the same place.
okay. I just was, yeah. I'm
Yeah, it's
with,
my fault. I'm sorry, Mary.
oh, no, it's not your fault. It just helps reinforce stuff. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm glad we got that straightened out.
Me too. I'd lose sleep over it.
I didn't, I don't want you to lose sleep. It's,
And that's not, reading what they had in here was confusing too. So there we go.
yeah,
All right.
sometimes I don't think the way they do.
Yeah, I find that often. Thank you very much.
You're
Good
welcome.
clap.
Okay, the project that came with your instructions, we had done for a technique class, okay? And if I go to my folder and I go to March, this is, oh, stop. What is your problem? Stop, machine. It's being weird. Okay. Well, I obviously confused the machine. Anyhow, in the meantime, this is the project that they describe. Now, the difference, there's a little bit difference of this in what I did and the actual project, because the project shows the stems of the flowers and then a vase at the bottom of it. I decided I didn't want that on this, so I just put the flowers. And the relevance to this, for this project and what we just went through, is the fact that all these designs are built into our machine, and we bring them into the screen, and then besides arranging them on the screen in a pleasing arrangement, we also arranged, using the arrange menu, we decided what was going to stitch out first and what was going to stitch out last, so that we didn't have leaves from this design on top of this flower. And in the project and in the machine, these flowers are yellow rather than pink, but I wanted them pink so I could change the color on them. And this little design with the flowers here has some extra stuff that I chose to only stitch out part of the design and stop it and then go on to another part of the design, because I didn't want the rest of that design. But that was a manual. I don't know why that thing is wiggling, because I'm wiggling. That was a manual decision on my part, or a manual function on my part, to eliminate part of that design, because I can't cut a design apart on the machine. I could have taken it into the software, but the object of the project was to do it all on the machine. All right. So to show you a little bit about that, let me go back to my screen here and see if we're going to have our little issue that we had before. Okay, so now I want to go back to my March folder. Open. Thank you. And okay, so that is the design that is talked about in our project. And if you look closely, you can see a little bit of green sticking out behind this particular yellow flower. Well, that's the part that I chose not to stitch out. And if I open my arrange menu, then all of this is in one design because it's grouped. And because I saved it as a grouped file, I can't ungroup it. So we can go back and play with some of those designs.
Could we ungroup that in our software or not?
No, this was all done on the machine.
Okay, so we couldn't take that file to our software and ungroup it.
Oh, you could take it to your software and, you know, if you built it on the machine,
Yes,
yeah, you could take it into your software, of course.
and then you could ungroup it there.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So on the machine, you can't ungroup it, but the software you can.
Yes. And let me,
Wouldn't it just come in as a single design?
Yeah, that's what's confusing.
I'm sorry.
In your
If we saved it, go ahead, Mary.
no, you go ahead.
No.
If you saved it on your machine and you brought it into your software, it's going to come in as a single design. You could cut it apart, but you couldn't just ungroup it. It wouldn't know it was a group, would it?
Exactly. Yes, you're right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Let me open this one.
Thanks.
See, and that's grouped also. Because I was doing it like they told us in the instructions, and that was their instruction to group it so that you didn't accidentally touch it and mess it up while you were stitching it out.
Well, you could probably continue to group it until you saved it, right? You could group it and ungroup it until you
Oh,
saved it.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So if you bring in some designs, and if you bear with me here, there's some designs in here that I really think are fascinating. Actually, they're in this. I really, really, really like that design. And I'm going to go to a bigger hoop. So if I bring that in, and then I bring in, I was messing with this earlier. So I say I want to put that one here, okay? And then I want to bring in, let's see, what else did I find that I liked? I liked that one. And just as a curiosity, okay, I know my hand's in the way, I'm sorry. If I touch that and if I hold it, it comes into the screen where I was holding it. However, and this worked the same way on the FOF, and that's where I discovered this. If I touch it and then I just tap it again, it's going to come into the middle of the screen.
Oh.
So, you know, if you're wondering why your designs don't come into the center of your hoop, that's why. Because if you hold it, then it's going to come into wherever you're touching the screen, which made me happy that I finally figured that out. Okay, this one I want to flip, and I'm going to move over here, and I want to do that. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that design very well or not. Let me scoot you up. Okay, so that when I look at my arrange menu now, I have 5 different designs in my arrange menu. And I want this design, the one that's on top, the first one that I brought in, I want it to be on the top of everything so I can move it down or move it so it stitches later. So now it is on top of those other 4 designs and it will stitch last. All right. And this little one that now is number 3, I would like him to stitch out first. So I'm going to put him on the top of my list in my arrange menu. And let's see, what do we got here? No, you think I changed my mind. I think I want that one to stitch out last. So it's on top of that stem there rather than having the stem on top of it. And I think I like that arrangement. Now, if I select all and group it, then it is one design. And if I save it, then it saves as grouped. If I ungroup it before I save it, then I can. I still have my 4 designs. Okay? And does it make sense about the way I layered them, the way I want them to stitch out?
Yeah.
And once I, if I grouped them and I said, well, right now, looking at my scale icon, this tells me that it's 171.3 millimeters wide and 270.1 high. Well, I really want it bigger than that. So I could scale it, or I could see if it will let me resize it. So if I say resize, and it's not going to let me resize it as a group, okay? So if I wanted really to resize it, then I would need to group it so it became one design. Then I should be able, you're being a pain. It tells me I can only make it littler, because the reason I'm saying it told me I could only make it littler is because only the down arrow in the control wheel was active. So I couldn't make it bigger. I would have had to make it bigger in here before I grouped it, I went to resize, I came back and I was able to ungroup it. So if I wanted to make it bigger in here, I would either have to select each design individually and go to resize if I wanted it bigger than 20%, and I could select all. I could, let's see what happens here. I selected all, but it's not grouped, okay? So I save it as, or in flowers, say, and I have no idea what kind of names I have in there. Well, open flowers, that's a good idea. So I'm going to save it with a goofy name. And I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to load in flowers my design that I saved. And it comes in, it's still ungrouped. Okay, so you can save it ungrouped and bring it back and then treat it just as the individual designs or as a group. Does that help in any way?
Yeah, it does. Do you have any idea of why it would only let you make it smaller, not larger?
No, that's squirrely.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so but let's, okay, I want to go back to, well, I didn't want to do that one, but okay. Well, okay, we won't do that one then. Oops, I hit the wrong icon. For some reason, this particular design totally fascinates me, but that's just me. But now when I have just, let's see, again, with it's that design, it only has the down arrow active. So there's something about that design that they don't want you to make bigger. If I go back and I select it and I select scale, I can make it 20% bigger, but I can't resize it. Go figure.
Interesting. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Part of it is because this part of the design, the little satin part up at top, is a fringe.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I don't know if that has something to do with it or not. But yes, this part up here is fringe, where you cut the bobbin thread and pull the top threads out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd be curious to take this design into the software and see if I could make it bigger.
Can I ask one more question about our files? Is there any way to back those up? Because mine's getting pretty full. And I'd
But
like to
your
ask
cloud,
our cloud, right?
well, you can, on your computer, you have access to your Sonnet cloud files, and you could just copy them off to something else and then delete what you're not going to be using for a while, and then your backup file would be there.
Okay.
I mean, it's just like any other computer file through
Okay.
your computer. Have you, I don't know if you've ever accessed that. It's called My Sonnet Cloud.
Okay. Well, I could just put it on my desktop or something, maybe a backup of it.
Sure.
Mm.
Or just, if you've got a file, or put it in the My Sonnet folder for your software, make
Okay.
one called Cloud Files or something. Make a folder.
Okay.
Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yes, I would just like to clean it up, but I don't want to lose what I have.
Okay, so copy them,
Okay.
and then take out what you're not using or what you think you're not going to use, but you haven't lost them because you've copied them to another file.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Does any of this make sense?
Mhm. Total sense. It's great.
Yeah.
I had really missed this on the Epic. That's why I enjoyed those icon lessons so much, because I was learning all that on the icon, but I hadn't learned it on the Epic. So that's perfect.
So yes, you have pretty much the same functions
Mm-hmm.
on the Epic that you have on the icon as far as manipulating designs. I mean, there are a few things like when we did the sequin stitches, that's unique to the Epic. The ribbon stitches are unique to the icon. But as far as dealing with the embroidery designs, that's pretty much the same on both machines. They might call it something different, or you get at it from a different place. But basically the same functions are there as far as like scale, resize, group, ungroup, change the sequence, change colors. It's all there.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Anybody? Mary, you okay?
I'm okay. Thank you again for another good class. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
One more thing. I was kind of concerned that Betty didn't hear that she could watch this on YouTube. So I don't know how to communicate with Betty and let her know that.
I can email her or text her. That's a good idea. I will do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. First, I will bring it up and make sure I know what I'm talking about.
Okay, no, it was there. I was amazed. I'm so glad that we discussed that.
Yeah.
Me too, because I need to know that, and it's something I just haven't messed with. I'm not sure I want to see myself.
Yeah, I don't see you much. It's mostly, it's just your screen. So
Yeah. Well, that's more important than seeing me. You need to see the functions and how they work.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Judy,
So-
can I ask a quick question?
Well, sure, Diane.
So I've heard you say a couple times, if you have questions, reach out to me. I know you don't want people to stalk you or anything, but do you have an email address or something if, if we get stuck on something, we could reach out?
Yeah, it actually, the workbook stuff that you got today, I sent out. So my email address should be on there.
Because
But
it
if
just
it's
says
not,
Sew-ciety.
you got a piece of pencil and paper?
Yeah, it just says sew-ciety at sew-ciety.com. Did those come to you?
No.
Because that's,
You didn't get two of them, Diane?
I'm
I got-
sorry?
I got one from Sew-ciety and one from Judy K.
oh, I didn't get one from Judy. Okay,
Okay.
I will write it down.
Well, Carol asked me to send them out yesterday because of their computer problem. And I didn't do email yet today, so I didn't know that there was another one that came out. But Diane, if you're ready, I'll tell you my email address.
I am.
It's SEWJUDYKAY@comcast.net.
Okay.
So Judy K at comcast.net.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
I think this is going to be a pillow on my couch for spring.
Good.
Yeah.
I will warn you that these pink they're yellow in the machine, but these flowers are very dense. So stabilize them well. Okay, as you learned from Paula the last couple weeks.
Right. I was thinking of using kind of a little heavier fabric, like a twill. I don't know. I just have some, so I thought I would try it.
Okay, I don't know if you can see, you can't necessarily see the shape of this, but this is part of a pair of jeans. This is denim.
Oh, so that would be perfect.
Yeah.
So I have one other question. If you go to your sewing machine screen, the get out of jail thing, as Carol calls it, at the top. And it shows your machine name, and then it says, "Good afternoon, Diane. New day, new project. Try out create a shape with pattern repeat." Is there a way to go back and see other projects? Like yesterday, I saw one, but I didn't do it, and then I turned my machine off, and when I came back, it was a different one. Are those located somewhere?
Well, mine says Friendship Braid Cushion. And when I touched that, it brought the project up down at the bottom of my screen. Now, whether that is, let's see, in my knowledge center, sewing instructions, fabric, that is one of them that's built into the machine.
Okay.
If you go to the Joy OS button and you go to the knowledge center here, the knowledge center up here,
Right.
and you go to sewing instructions and then to cushions, and you have two choices. You have the bird cushion or the Friendship Braid cushion.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, and there are other, there's bags and there's what they call fashion accessories. Those are all in the sewing instructions.
Okay.
All right. And now mine says,
big enough for all this.
now mine says something different. So it brings up a totally different project, but it's not one that there are instructions for that I've seen in the Knowledge Center.
That's the one I'm showing today. Create a shape with a pattern repeat.
Right. So, those are good projects there, and they just bring them up in a random fashion pretty much, just to give you some ideas of what you can do with your machine if you're looking for something new.
So Judy, to go back now to what I was working on before I asked you that question, how do I get back to that embroidery screen? I went back to basic embroidery. How do I get back to that thing I was putting together with the floral adventure?
You should be able to just go, okay, let me try this. All right.
Oh, I got it.
All right. If you
Hit the
close
sewing-
your project, it should have, if that's where you were before you went into your project, you should go back there.
Well, I just hit the sewing machine again and it took me back to what I
Okay.
had. Awesome. Thank you.
You did it yourself. You're
Yeah,
good.
by accident. A lot of things happen by accident.
Happy accidents.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else that I can help or confuse with?
Yes,
Okay.
I need some help.
Okay,
I-
Carolyn.
Okay, I'm trying to I just put my stick in and I can't get it to come up. Where do I need to be? I went back to the basic embroidery and then I hit start new.
All right. If you want to get to your stick and you're in embroidery, like my screen here, right? With your icons up here on top.
Actually, I pushed something else, so I'm going to go back to that screen. Yes.
Okay. Get back to that screen, please.
Okay, I'm there.
Now touch your yellow icon, the second one from the right.
Okay.
And you have three little icons across the top, the cloud
Oh.
with the heart, the machine, and then the USB symbol.
Okay, I got it. But before all of that was going down from, well, see what's highlighted, this gray screen? All of my, like my numbers, the A, the
Oh,
flower. Yeah, that was all along the side. Does that make sense?
well, let's see.
I don't know how to get that back. And maybe it doesn't matter. I deleted everything that was on this screen by accident.
When you're in a project, and that was the wrong thing to do. Ugh. Go away. Okay. When you're actually in a project, you've got all these options down here as to how you want it to appear, whether it's on the bottom, on the top, on the left, on the right, or full screen. I don't know that you can do that with these things, with the file manager here.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen it give you those options. I do know that if you open something, come on, a folder, it will, in sewing, it will bring it out to the whole screen. But I don't see it doing it well, I am in sewing. This is crazy. Okay, I shouldn't be in sewing. There we go. Maybe that's confusing it. But there's not an option to move this menu around as far as I know.
Okay, well, I used to have it it doesn't matter anyway. I have another question. If you want to delete just one of the folders under your file manager,
Yeah.
I accidentally deleted them all. So how do you delete just one?
You would select it and then touch if you look at your trash can symbol down here, it's got one of those little arrows on the side of it. So
Yeah.
if you touch and hold, it lets you delete everything. But
Yeah,
if you just
I thought it was
touch
going to be,
and let go, it'll only delete what you've highlighted.
Say that again.
say that again.
All right. So if I'm showing all of my folders and all of my files, okay? If I touch, okay, I want to delete, say, this heart thing. So I select it. And if I just touch and release my garbage can, it will only delete that one.
Okay.
If I
Okay.
touch and hold my garbage can, it asks me if I want to delete everything.
Yeah,
And
it did. It did. And I thought I was deleting everything in the file, but that wasn't the case. I
well,
deleted all of my files, and that's okay.
all right. Now, wait, Carolyn, don't panic. Because all of those files are in your cloud. So turn your machine off and turn it back on, and it should resync.
Should reset what? Okay, I'm turning it back on. It should reset what?
It should resync all your files. It should download what's in the cloud into your machine.
Oh,
So maybe you didn't lose.
Unless
So
for some reason it deleted them from the cloud as well as your machine.
we'll see. We'll see shortly.
Okay.
We're just not clear on how to save stuff and delete stuff, I guess, but we're working on it. We're learning something every class, so thank
You
you.
just have to be a little careful which buttons you push.
That's for sure.
Okay?
Okay,
All right.
thank
Anything else?
you.
You're
That's
welcome.
it.
Good luck.
Thanks a bunch, Judy.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Judy.
Thanks. Karen, can you stop the record for me, please?